Yeah, and welcome everybody. This is I Strives to Thrive's second broadcast here only on getvocal.com. I am Joseph Burke. If we haven't had the chance to meet yet, I'm Joe, and I kind of do this organization called I Strive to Thrive, where I kind of am an advocate for people in the bleeding disorders community. So if you see my previous stream back in November, just to give you a quick recap of what we're going to be discussing today, I am born a hemophiliac. And basically, hemophilia is a blood clotting disorder where we can't really clot normally. We don't have any kind of like thing in our blood. So you have many factors in your blood, little tiny proteins. And I was born without factor VIII. So factor VIII, if you think about it, it's kind of like, how do we say this? How can I put this in? It's the cheese in your mac and cheese. There you go. So without the cheese, it kind of sucks, right? But with factor VIII, everything just kind of comes together. It's the glue that binds all the factor proteins together. So I don't have factor VIII, so that means when I get cut, it could be a big deal. So what I'm talking about today is a lot of the new therapies that are coming out in the hemophilia world and the bleeding disorders community. And what does this mean for just chronic illness as a whole, as a perspective? And that's what we're going to be discussing today. And I do have a lot of information that I want to be passing along. And I do want to say, if any of you guys, at any chance or any time during today's presentation, have a question, you don't understand the terminology, you don't understand the lingo, please let me know over in the sidebar chat. Now, this is streaming out also on Facebook Live and on Periscope as well over on my I Strive to Thrive channels there. So this is pretty cool. Badges, life without your cheese and mac is so sad. Indeed, Badges, indeed. So come hang out. Now, if you want to chat with me in real time, go to getvocal.com. That's GETVOKL.com. And you'll see me right on the front page there, right on the banner. Just click join, and you'll be in here in the chat room. So we're going to be going through a lot of like terms and things that might be a little foreign. So I'm going to kind of break it down for you in layman's terms. What does it mean? And what is the future of where we're going in terms of how we treat chronic illness today? So that's going to be a pretty cool discussion and topic going forward today. So having said that, if you remember my last broadcast in November, I had discussed a little bit about my own story and just all the stuff that I went through. I won't go through all of that today, but the main thing I want to hit on today is definitely hemophilia. Hemophilia is being the reason why the industry is targeting hemophilia as one of the prospects for a possible cure. Let me just rephrase that. The reason why the industry is using hemophilia as prospects for a cure is because hemophilia is a blood-borne chronic illness. Being that it is in the blood, it's more easier to have a better outcome than something that's deeply rooted in the DNA structure like multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, for example. That's more of a deep tissue, brain DNA issue of the tissue. You see what I did there, right? So it's kind of like hemophilia is the perfect playing ground for scientists and the pharmaceutical industry to be able to kind of figure out the mechanisms, the proteins and the molecules to be able to start figuring out how to switch on our liver's factor VIII producing protein. All right. So factor VIII is produced in your liver. All your factors, your platelets, your blood cells, everything is made in your liver. And so that means technically hemophilia is a defect of the liver when you think about it. So what does that mean? If I get a liver transplant, does that mean I'm cured of hemophilia? Question. Actually, yeah. If I get a liver transplant, I would be immediately cured of hemophilia. Think about that for a second. That's kind of weird, right? So at the end of the show today, we're going to be opening up the channel about 15 minutes before the show closes, around about the 45-minute mark. And we're going to be going through and asking, you can come on the camera and ask some questions. And so this is going to be really cool for me because this is the first time I've accumulated all this information. Now it's the first time I get to put it out there. And the purpose of this video today is going to be a kind of a utilization tool for the bleeding disorder communities that I'm involved with. Like, hey, all these therapies are out there and the information's so scattered and so sparse. Here's a quick 30, 40-minute video that kind of shows you a little bit of what's going on and brings everything together in one location where you can just sit down and you can understand and learn about it. So let's fast forward to January. All right. So let's go to January 2019. What happened there? All right. So I was put on a brand new drug. As you remember, I did a live infusion on my last broadcast here on Get Vocal. I actually stuck the needle in my arm, in the vein. It's kind of weird to say that I don't have to do that anymore. What? Yes, you heard me right. I'm 46 days without having to take factor 8 as of today. That's pretty weird. It's pretty strange for me. I will say that much. 46 days and not having to stick a needle in my vein. That's pretty cray-cray. So here's what happened. In October 2018, just 4 months ago, I mean, this is pretty darn recent, a brand new drug to treat hemophilia was approved by the FDA, and it received expanded approval for the routine prophylaxis therapy to prevent and reduce frequency of bleeding episodes in adult. Now, what is a bleeding episode? All right, so that's a really good point. Let's stop there. In a hemophiliac, when we overexert our bodies, for example, say you go running, you do your evening run, you do a nice jog, and you come back and your knees kind of sore, like, man, I think I ran a little too hard. You go to bed and you wake up the next morning, you might have a little bit of stiffness, but you recover pretty quickly, right? All right, so we've all kind of been there and to some degree. In a hemophiliac, someone who has permanent joint deformity like myself, and I'll show you what I mean. See my elbow? My elbow is permanently fused. When we overexert ourselves, the joint will literally rupture. Every joint in your body has these membranes around it called synovia. Synovia fluid flows through your joints to allow you to move and be mobile. Okay. Well, in a hemophiliac, okay, we have the same thing you do, but when we overexert ourselves, all those little blood vessels around that synovial fluid sac rupture into the joint, causing the joint to swell 3 to 4 times its normal size. And so we have a lot of excruciating pain. And that's what I mean by a bleed. That's what I mean by a bleeding episode. And it happens very frequently in hemophiliacs, sometimes once, twice, maybe 4 times a month. And we have these things called target joints. Target joints are joints that are just, they've been through everything. They've had multiple bleeding episodes. They are permanently fused, which means they are immobile, like my elbow. So this is the fullest I can extend my elbow, by the way, from there to there. Yeah. So that I got to live with that. That's me. So let's back up to 4 months ago and this brand new drug called Hemlibra that got approved 4 months ago. It's pretty awesome, and it's approved for people with hemophilia A, which I do have, and we don't have factor 8 in our bodies. Now, back in November, I think it was also approved for, of November 2017, it was approved for routine prophylaxis to prevent and reduce frequency of bleedings in pediatric patients. So let's go back a year before this. It was approved for young kids, pediatric patients who didn't have any kind of inhibitors. Now, if you don't know what an inhibitor is, let me explain that, and then we'll move on. Inhibitor is a big term. When you hear that word in the hemophilia community, there's a lot of red flags. It means that your body is building a resistance to the treatment that you're giving yourself. Okay. So it's like an antibody, for example. Like when we get the cold or the flu or whatever, we have a virus, our body naturally builds up these antibodies to fight it off. And you have those antibodies for the rest of your life. And so in someone with a hemophilia patient, if you're getting therapy and all of a sudden you start developing these inhibitors, that means the medicine is getting a lower frequency in your body as the inhibitor antibodies are trying to fight off this foreign matter that's in your body, which is the prophylactic therapy. And so it's really interesting how all this works. And if you're taking notes or you're taking mental notes, save these for the end of the show, because we're definitely going to open up the window and allow a little bit of Q&A time. So here's the cool thing. Now, Hemlibra is the name of this brand new drug. And it's the first therapy approved for hemophilia that changes the traditional method of administration from intravenous, which means in the vein, to subcutaneous, which means under the skin. The first treatment to come out like this in over 50 years in the bleeding disorder community. So you can understand why there is a resounding revival of sorts around this new drug. And I actually got into my cabinet, and I'm going to pull out some visual aids for you. So here we have, just look at the size. All right, so typical tourniquet. All right, so I haven't had to use this guy in a while. This is a regular fabric tourniquet. Here's the OG syringe. Look at that bad boy. I mean, got a big 20 ml syringe there. Got our butterfly needle that goes into the vein. So this is what I had to do for 38 years of my life. Look at that. And so mixing the medicine and all of that. Well, insert Hemlibra. I got to do a size comparison because this is just great. All right. So we have factor 8 on one hand, Hemlibra on the other. So look at the difference. I mean, just the size and the ratio of administration. It's a 1 ml syringe. It's so tiny. Here, I'll show it. I'll show you a comparison. It's like, I don't know what that means, Joe. How big is it? So big guy, little guy. Pretty cool, right? And this, here's the crazy thing, the needle. All right. So this guy I've been living with for 38 years. He's been going in my vein. I don't know how many times to tell you. Then there's this little bitty guy right there. Can you see? Like, you can barely see the needle out there, but it's not even, it's so tiny, dude. I'm not even going to lie. So here's Hemlibra. Hemlibra comes on the scene. It's a tiny little vial, very tiny. And you can just see the medicine that's in there. So this is next week's infusion for me. I've already done this week's, or I would have done it live on camera. But it bypasses the need for factor 8 protein or injections. Hemlibra is breakthrough. How does it do that? If it's not factor 8, how is it keeping hemophiliacs from these bleeding episodes? What is the mechanism involved? Well, I actually have some pretty cool graphics to show you. But before I show you those, I'm going to explain to you what they mean. Do you do the injections yourself? Yes, Curtis. I've been infusing myself. And that I want to encourage you guys, just like what Curtis did. If you have a question, ask it, and I'll bring it out on the show live. I have infused myself since age 8, Curtis. So I had to go to a camp, a hemophilia bleeding disorder camp, when I was 8 years old to be trained how to infuse myself and stick the vein. Not just like a little stick under the skin. We actually had to find the vein. So here's how Hemlibra works. It binds together factor 9 and factor 10 proteins to complete the clotting cascade of the 12 clotting factors in our blood. There's 12 clotting factors in our blood. Everybody has it. Everybody's born with it. And so my personal account of how Hemlibra has changed my life and productivity is pretty crazy. As I said earlier, I'm 46, going on 47 days tomorrow, not having to infuse factor 8 because of this brand new drug. Now, I got a couple of graphics here I'm going to show you. It kind of breaks down basically what I'm talking about. All right, so here we see a diagram. And if you look at the diagram, right in the middle of the top, it says prophylaxis. So prophylaxis is the kind of, this is what we call preventative therapy. It's infusions that we do and we give ourselves to maybe not allow these bleeding episodes to happen. And so prophylaxis is the target of all those therapies. Now, what happens with prophylaxis is, if you see there's some arrows cascading to the left and to the right, if you don't have prophylaxis and you treat on an as-needed basis, over on the left-hand side, we get what's called joint damage. You just saw my elbow, prime example. Now, if you go over to the right, some of the new stuff we're going to be talking about today, gene therapy in prophylaxis, could it be? Well, we'll be talking about that. As we go down, if prophylaxis is not administered into a patient, a bleeding event with joint damage will happen on both sides. If the bleeding event is too severe and not treated, ultimately at the bottom, it will result to death, morbidity. And so prophylactic therapy is Hemlibra specifically, and in all the other factor 8 concentrates that's out there. There's like 20 some factor concentrates out on the market. So if you don't have the proper care, the proper medicine, and guys, let me tell you, in third world countries, this is a huge concern, because in third world countries, they don't have these treatments. They don't have anything. They have nothing. And so when they don't have anything like that, their joints at a very early age, like 8 or 10, they're permanently crippled for the rest of their lives because they don't have the therapy, and they have to sit there and suffer with these giant swollen joints. It's so crazy. Happy early birthday, Joseph. Thank you, Alexander. Oh man, you guys are awesome. Well, let's all right, so let's get back to this. I got a lot of ground to cover in a short time to get there, and I want to make sure I try to hit on all these points. So I did find a really cool graphic to show you. All right, so here's how Hemlibra looks in the packaging. You just saw me hold up the vial. So I have the one on the left, the little red cap. And so it's a 0.4 ml and a 0.7 ml. All right, and this is for injection under the skin. First time in over 50 years, something on the hemophilia treatment regimen is now under the skin. Dude, I'm telling you, this is a game changer because we don't have to go around now with permanent scarring in our joints, in our veins, because I have so much scarring on my elbows where I've had to infuse over the year. It's crazy. So I have a really cool graphic here I'm going to show you, and this will really kind of explain everything that I'm talking about. So on the left-hand side, we have factor 9 and factor 10, okay? Factor 9 is on the left, factor 10 is on the right. You can see this, it's labeled by FX and F1X, all right? Factor 9, factor 10. So without the need of, if you see there's like a little ghost protein that comes down right in the middle, that would be what it would look like for factor 8 infusion. See this? It doesn't create a perfect loop. It just fills in the gaps so the clotting can cascade. Hemlibra, on the other hand, is genetically modified to not only bind factor 9 and factor 10 proteins, but totally bypass the need for factor 8 altogether. It's insane. It's cutting edge stuff, guys. It's cutting edge stuff. So you can see how if I was what I did back in November, I'm infusing, all right? So I just stuck in the vein and I'm getting my therapy. If you look at the thing here, as the protein comes down, it creates the 3 clot cascade. Well, Hemlibra comes in and just kind of locks the two together without even needing factor 8. It's insanely crazy. Very blessed to be able to be a part of this therapy and stuff like that. So it's pretty neat to be able to see how all of that works. Now, getting back to what we're talking about here, I think that Hemlibra is definitely on the threshold of something even greater. And just as recently as February the 19th, just a couple of days ago, the FDA approved a brand new drug for hemophilia, and this one is going. It's kind of touting a 4-day lifespan. Well, it's not. I mean, Hemlibra, the injections for Hemlibra lives about 30 days in your body. Now, these new therapies, there's a pharmaceutical company out there called Novo Nordisk, Novo Nordisk, and they launched a brand new drug for hemophilia just a few days ago called Esperoct. I'll get it out there. It's so new, I don't even know how to say it. But it reduces the annual bleed rate to 1.8. Like I said, bleed rates. Let's talk about that. In a hemophiliac, if we don't treat, we get bleeds. The frequency of those bleeds determines how well we are doing. And prophylactic therapy is the only thing to intervene and control the amount of bleeds that we have. Okay. So moving on along here, there's also one thing I want to talk about too before we get into genetic therapies, and that's cell therapies. Now, this information just came out. This is another reason why I wanted to do this show. On January the 28th, there was some pretty awesome and astounding information that came out about cell therapy. We're not even talking gene therapy. We're about altering the cells in your body. Now, cell therapy is a endothelial progenitor cells. Basically, endothelial progenitor cells are the cells that line all of your vessels in your body. Every blood vessel you have, whether it's a capillary, vein, or an artery, has these cells in there, and it's the coating around your arteries and your veins. Okay, so it's really interesting. They've taken those cells, the endothelial progenitor cells and stem cells, and genetically engineered to produce a functioning clotting factor 8 protein, and it may provide a stable long-term treatment for hemophilia A. And this is all done with a mouse study. Now, 2 cell types called the placenta-derived stromal cells and the endothelial colony forming cells. So we all know what stem cells is and stuff like that. well, it's kind of like a stem cell, but it's modified down to where it's not as, there's not as, let's see, there's not a big debate about it. It's more of a modified genetic structure of the stem cell, if that makes sense. So these ECFCs are cells that are given rise to the endothelial cells, the ones that line the blood vessels. Okay. So the primary source of factor VIII in our body, that's where the blood cells are coming from. Once isolated in the lab, the ECFCs can quickly replicate and acquire the features of the endothelial cells. So these cells are administered into your vein. They find your endothelial cells, repair them. Not only do they repair them, but they fix the factor VIII genetic deformity that we have in our blood and produces and allows our blood to produce factor VIII proteins. It's mind-blowing stuff. And so to kind of wrap it up, based on that observation that the researchers has tested the combined transplanted amounts of this enzyme with the model of hemophilia A, which had less than 1% of normal factor VIII activity, they treated a postnatal mice who were 2 weeks old. Importantly, the co-transplant was able to reduce by more than 2/3 the volume of blood lost by the mice after a simple cut, showing it made their blood clot faster. Interesting. So this work demonstrated that co-transplantation of ECFCs, which is those endothelial cells I was talking about, with PMSCs, which is the new migrated genetic altered stuff, at the neonatal age, we're talking premature. So if a hemophiliac patient is born and they're only days old and they get this injection, their body and their immune systems will adapt and automatically start repairing itself. Now, that there's no research yet on someone who is an aged hemophiliac like myself. But it's really cool to see how those cell therapies are coming along with just a simple infusion. It's really crazy. So as we break it down, we're going to be talking a little bit more here now about genetic therapy. All right. Now, this is the heavy hitter of the day right here. And genetic therapy, gene therapy has been a dream for so many researchers for decades, inserting a healthier gene into patients' cells to replace defective ones and curing diseases. Now, not all diseases are good candidates for it. And it's only in the last decade or so that the technology has been advanced enough for gene therapy to really be a possibility even. So only a few gene therapies have been approved so far. There are gene therapies on the market as we speak. And such as Spark Therapeutics, which is their Luxturna for a rare genetic form of blindness called retinal dystrophy. Okay, so the FDA is already on board with genetic therapy, and they've already approved this brand new drug from Spark Therapeutics. Okay, so the FDA and the federal government are already on board with this stuff. Now, several companies appear to be making progress for gene therapy for hemophilia. Spark is one of them, but BioMarin Pharmaceuticals is another big heavy hitter. Now, both gene therapies use a virus known as the adeno-associated virus. Oh no, are they inserting a virus into our bodies? What? Actually, it's a dead virus. It's the same kind of adenovirus that they use in the flu shot, just letting you know. So which is the most common virus used as a vector gene therapy? Stop, Joe. You're saying so many crazy terms right now. What the heck are you talking about? What is an adeno-associated virus? What is vector gene therapy? What does all this mean? All right, let me break it down for you. To administer into the cells, they have to have what's called a vector. A vector is the thing that once put into your body, goes into your DNA like a host of a virus. So you have a healthy cell and you have the virus. The virus comes along, attaches itself, inserts its DNA into your cell, and then just dies off. And then that cell has your DNA. This is how HIV works, because you got your healthy T cell coming in. It's healthy and happy. Here comes HIV. It attaches to itself, inserts its DNA, RNA into your cell, which is the bad stuff, telling your immune system to die off. And then when it dies off, you got your infected cell and it just dies and withers away. All right, so reverse that mentality. Healthy cell, you got a vector virus coming in that's got the healthy genetic material in it. Here's the cell that doesn't have factor VIII protein. The virus comes along, attaches itself to the cell, inserts the corrected DNA material right here, it dies off, and now you have a cell that's producing factor A. That's the best way I can describe it of actually trying to give that in layman terms. Now, getting back to it, it poses at least two problems. First, it isn't large enough to carry many full genes. For example, the genes related to missing clotting factor 8 or factor 9 or any of the other genes that is damaged in the muscular dystrophy syndrome. As results, we're talking about other types of genetic therapies as well. As a result, scientists have developed a truncated versions of the genes that still work. Now, the second problem is that because the vector is a virus, all right, we talked about the virus coming into the cell, the immune system may react to it, all right? And at a higher dose required to be effective, the more likely there is to be an immune response and reaction. Now, we're getting into the good stuff here, okay? So on May 22nd, just last year, Pfizer and Spark, Pfizer is another huge heavy hitter in the therapeutic pharmaceutical world, announced a follow-up to more than 15 participants in the phase 1, phase 2 clinical trials of SPK 901, okay, for hemophilia B. All 15 patients had discontinued routine infusions of factor 9 concentrates, and none experienced serious adverse events. So it's pretty good. Now, on July 16th, they announced the launch of phase 3 clinical trials of SPK 9001, okay, which is now named the, oh my gosh, I can't even say it's Fitagus. How about I just put it in the chat room? Oh my gosh, I'm not even going to attempt this. This is funny, a little hillbilly boy trying to announce something. Anyway, I digress. So where am I going with this? Gene therapy is going to be the heavy hitter. It's going to be the one that literally is going to change the game for hemophilias across the whole world. It's going to be insane. And so I got a list here of some drugs that I'm going to go over and talk about in detail. And then I want to share something on a personal thing. And I'll leave you. And when I leave you with the last tidbit of what I have to say, you'll kind of see where I'm going with all of this. So stay tuned. Hang with me. 5 more minutes, I promise. So one is the Philadelphia-based Spark Therapeutics, which won approval for the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for Luxturna, which is a drug that they just have on the market. And Luxturna is another one of those ones that treats the eye deformity we were talking about in December 2017 to cure a rare genetic form of blindness. Now, Luxturna is the first approved one-time therapy of its kind that targets a disease caused by mutations in a specific gene. Does that sound familiar? Hemophilia much? Maybe. So at $850,000 for both eyes. What? $850,000 for both eyes? It is the most expensive treatment in the United States until this stuff comes out that I'm getting ready to share with you. Another one that's on the market is SP. Now, if you're on clinicaltrials.gov, the website, and you type in these numbers of these actual clinical trials I'm giving you, you'll be able to find all the information about it. So SPK 8011 may be a safe treatment strategy for patients with severe or moderately severe hemophilia A, achieving an overall 97% reduction in annual bleeds, according to the preliminary data showing in ongoing phase 1 and 2 trials. Now, researchers have reported a 94% reduction in bleeds. I just explained to you how the bleeds are in hemophiliacs and how we're prone to them. Now, and a 95% decrease in additional clotting factor 8 infusions across all 3 treatment doses 4 weeks after SPK 8011 administration. Pretty awesome. And I want to save the one I'm going to list for last. There's 2 more I'm going to share with you. Unicor is developing a set of gene therapy treatments for various diseases, and its lead product candidate, AMT-061, is in phase 3 trials targeting hemophilia B. Now, I've never actually discussed much on hemophilia B, but there's 2 types of hemophilia, A and B, and they both have their own subgenres, mild, moderate, severe. All right, so I am a severe hemophiliac with type A, which means I have less than 1% factor VIII clotting level in my body. Now, the company reported positive phase 2 data from the trial in November 2018. So this is just 4 months ago. Hemophilia B is an orphan blood clotting disease affecting about 1 in 25,000 U.S. males at birth. Hemophilia is thought to affect approximately 20% of people. Basically, Hemophilia B is kind of one of those ones. It's not as much talked about, but it's definitely prevalent and it's out there. As developed, the world has represented the target market for Unicor. Unicor is on board with this gene therapy. They've already developed this brand new drug. The nearest major catalyst is data from phase 3 Hope B study, which will initiate the dosing phase in the first quarter of 2019. So Unicor is already in phase. Did I just say phase 3? After phase 3 is FDA approval. So you got phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, FDA approval. So if they're in phase 3 right now, maybe by the end of the year, starting in 2020, Unicor will have their brand new product out for Hemophilia B for genetic search. Now, excuse me, pardon me. A lot of talking going on here. I understand. I thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Oh my God, my mouth is going like crazy right now. I get excited, I get really excited about this stuff. So, BioMarin. Oh man, this is going to hit home for me. BioMarin eyes in 2019 FDA filing for Hemophilia A gene therapy. Now, there are a few criteria for BioMarin to meet, however, including showing that its factor VIII assay is robust as a surrogate marker and basically is able to achieve factor VIII levels in the normal range that predict a reduction in annualized bleeding rates, or ABRs. Now, we talked about the bleed rates, how frequently, if you don't get your treatment, you don't do your infusions, you're basically a sitting duck for a bleeding episode, which is going to be days, possibly weeks of recovering from that particular episode. So that's what the annual bleed rate is. In me, I think last year in 2018, I had 12 or 13 bleeds. So that would be my annual bleed ratio. Okay. ABR, annual bleed ratio. Now, BioMarin is developing gene therapy using the vector virus, the AAV that we talked about, the dead virus. All right. And basically, they have formulated it in such a way, and this is just fresh off of my head. I was at my doctor yesterday at University of Florida in Gainesville. She's an amazing hematologist, by the way, fantastic doctor. And she said, "Hey, Joe, I included you on something, and I think you might want to know about it." And I'm like, what are you doing now, Doc? I just got on Hemlibra. This is exciting. She said, "Well, you might want to consider this." And I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about?" She said, "I included you on the new BioMarin phase 3 clinical trial of the new genetic gene therapy." And I kind of sat there for a minute, and I'm like, "You did what?" She said, "Yeah, I put you on the register for BioMarin's brand new genetic gene therapy, which is having a 97% acceptance threshold from phase 2 trials." So what does that mean for me? What does that mean for Joe as a hemophiliac? It means a cure is what that means. That as you can see, I'm processing it as I'm thinking about it, and it's a lot to really meditate on. And so the fact is, there's some parameters. There's with every win always comes a battle, and with everything that I do, there's always this level of perseverance and getting to that point. And when I was cured of hepatitis C in 2014, there was this period of just like, where am I going from here? What do I do with myself? And how do I pick up the pieces of living with the virus for 30 years that's no longer part of me? And where do I start now? Where is the reset button? Okay, that was 2014. Well, now we're here in 2019. And they said that there's a cure coming out for Hemophilia A. Now, they used that term very loosely, cure, because the drug is so new. They haven't had like a 10-year model of how long it goes and does. But from the information that I was given by my doctor just yesterday, it's just a regular infusion in the vein, And it's a one-time infusion. It's no bigger than probably a syringe like this. I have to be monitored at the hospital for 4 to 5 hours after I do the infusion because it's a genetic therapy. Things are going to be happening in my body. Cells are going to be triggered on. Things are going to be reworked, rewired. DNA is being inserted. So I have to be put on a lot of like monitoring equipment just to make sure my heart's okay, my liver's okay, my kidneys are working, my heart, my lungs, my brain, everything. So this is going to be really crazy. And I have to go to Gainesville, Florida, which is about an hour and a half away once a week. And I have to have labs done twice a week. But the therapy is supposed to be happening towards the end of summer. And I'm so excited. It's, you know, you can find this if you go to Biomarin his website, you can find a little bit of information about it over there, but it's a brand new treatment. Strive to survive. That's right, my friend. So let me break out everything down. I've laid it all up to this. So we've talked about Hemlibra, which is I'm currently on, and it's working phenomenally. Then we're talking also about the genetic therapy coming out. There's some stipulations with it. And the stipulations are I will have to go off of Hemlibra, go back on my as-needed medicine. So this would go bye-bye. Because in order to have the clinical data they need, Hemlibra works so well and is so effective that they can't get accurate measurements on what, if I was to have a bleed, how I'm doing. Because when you're on Hemlibra, you're just doing fine. You're walking around like a normal person. So I would have to come off Hemlibra. Kind of sad about that. For 40 days, and then I would have to be back on my old in the vein stuff for 6 months leading up to the therapy. And then I would have to go to the doctor once a week in Gainesville, which is an hour and a half away. So that's time, money, gas, and all that stuff getting up there. But in the back of my mind, I'm reminded of one thing that, you know, nothing comes without a little effort. Nothing comes without some sweat, some perseverance, and just getting it through. And if it means that I get this infusion and I magically get cured of hemophilia, which is a 97% possibility, by the way, I will never have to administer Factor VIII or Hemlibra or anything else for the rest of my life. And I'll have a normal 20 to 30% clotting factor level in my body at all times. Wow. That's pretty crazy. So the future is where we're going. And so the federal government and a lot of these pharmaceutical industry companies have targeted the bleeding disorder community as the first ones to get the limelight for genetic testing. So that's why you're not hearing genetic testing for a lot of the other disorders like MS or, you know, Alzheimer's, anything like that, because they're not bloodborne pathogens. Those are deep tissue neurological disorders that have to have a little bit more degree of, I guess, some longevity and trying to discern and figure out how those protein molecules will work in physical tissue instead of the bloodstream. So it's pretty awesome. And so the bleeding disorders community within the next 4 to 5 years will probably be having these injections. Now, here's what I didn't tell you is that these injections has been estimated at $1.6 million. Let me just stop for a minute. What? $1.6 million for an injection? Well, if I get on the clinical trial, which it looks like I'm going to get on it, hopefully, fingers crossed, I get it for free. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm pretty happy about that. And, you know, for someone like myself who was born a hemophiliac, which is a genetic disorder passed down from the mother, and at age 3 got HIV and hepatitis C from contaminated blood products, and then to go to 2014, get cured of Hep C, and then 2019, get cured of hemophilia. Bring it. I'm excited, bro. I am so excited. You have no idea. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually open up the seats, and we're going to allow for some people to come in and maybe give some questions. If you have any commentary or some questions, I would love to hear from you. So I'm going to open up the seats. Please keep it clean. Please keep it concise. And please ask your questions efficiently as you can, okay? Because this is being recorded. All right, so I'm going to open up the seats. So if you got any questions, hop in right quick. and we'll take them in the order that they were randomly. If you have any questions about genetic therapies, hemophilia, anything that we discussed today and what's happening in the world of bleeding disorders in the community, hop in and ask a question.
Hey, Joe.
What's up, Lieutenant Badger? How you doing?
I'm seriously like crying over here off screen. I'm so incredibly excited for you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to try to keep this quick. Can you talk a little bit about the differences on your new medicine that you've experienced versus, you know, your 30 years of habitual routine? And I know that you just recently went to the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
You can talk a little bit about that, and, you know, having a pimple or cutting yourself shaving, and just the differences and things that we take for granted that have been celebratory events for you recently.
Yeah, it's you hit the nail on the head, Lindsay. And so I went to the dentist just a few days ago, and I had my cleaning. I always get my teeth cleaned every 6 months, and they found that one of my fillings that I had when I was a kid was kind of loose, and I'm like, okay, well, I got to go get that done. So they did that, and they corrected my filling. And I was sitting there, I was like, should I take Factor 8? What do I do here going into the dentist office? Because, you know, if they're going to be on my gums and they get cut and I'm going to be bleeding, what's going to happen there? Well, needless to say, they did the procedure in its entirety, and there may be just one little spot of blood on my gums. I clotted immediately. So it's pretty amazing. And another thing, too, I've noticed, you asked me, have I noticed any kind of subtleties and changes in my body physiologically? I've noticed a lot less bruising. Obviously, I'm walking around and I'm not having any kind of joint issues. I've not had a bleed since January the 12th. It's crazy. It's insane. So I'm doing a lot better, and I'm feeling a lot better. And I'm finding myself, I'm able to do a lot more. And I've been out in the yard a lot. I've been just enjoying life and not really living under the shadow of like, oh my gosh, I gotta be so cautious. I gotta walk on eggshells for the rest of my life.
You're like, if I do this, am I gonna hurt the next day?
So this little vial right here has literally changed the game for me.
So it's kind of giving you like a ticket to a little bit more freedom of sorts.
Yeah, and definitely. Like I said, though, I think, Lindsay, the biggest thing is worrying about that cloud that's over you at all times. Like,
yeah,
what? Every time I go to Disney World, I got to take Factor 8 in the car on ice, to keep it cool. And I don't have to really worry about that now. I can go to the park and know that beyond the shadow of a doubt, even if I get sore, just be calm and take it and let Hemlibra do its job. And it does within an hour or two. And there's been, I call these moments like ghost episodes. Like I can feel my elbow. I'm like, oh man, it's sore. I hope it's not going to come into an actual bleed. Well, when it doesn't, I'm like, wow, it actually did what it said it was going to do, and it stopped in its tracks. So pretty awesome.
All right, I'll hop off of here and we'll talk more later.
All right,
but I'm so excited for you, and awesome show as always.
Thank you, sweetheart. Love you. All right, what's up, Stacy Bryuka?
Oh, Joe.
Turn your mic up a little bit.
I don't know if I can. I'm not sure which mic I've got on right now.
Okay.
So I'll have to just talk louder.
Talk louder.
I didn't check my mics before because I was so excited. I had questions for you yesterday about things, I was thinking of questions for you the other day, and one of them you answered today, and I didn't expect you to answer it the way you did. I thought of, if there are trials that come up that will cure or will alleviate even more the restrictions you have in life and that cloud over you, would you choose to be involved in them? Because trials come with risks and things. And so my question for you was, would you do it? And not only do you come back today with, there is something, my doctor put me in for it, and oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here kind of overwhelmed as well, like Lindsay said.
Yeah. It's a big deal. And if everything goes as planned, and the universe lines up and I'm able to do this. I mean, there's so many things right now that I have to go through, you know, because this company that's doing this clinical study is, and I want to say, hey, Carol, hang out with me just for a second. I got you, girl. Don't go nowhere. Okay. But I have to do this like mobile bleeding log type thing where I have to document every day of my life and how I'm feeling, how I'm doing, how's my joints. So there's a lot of stuff overhead. What's that?
Nothing for you.
I know it's nothing for me, but the big thing is going to Gainesville once a week. That's going to be tough. You know,
it's going to be tough, but it's a small thing for that lifetime of freedom. And,
yes.
And the gift that I think prayers have probably been answered here with this possibility that Creator's giving you the freedom, because
I would definitely agree with that.
There's big things that He wants you to do.
I do feel that, and I do agree with that.
I will jump back off. I am so overwhelmed for you.
Thank you. That was the one I wanted to leave on. So
yeah, I will. I know I'll see you soon.
You will. I promise. All right. What's up, Anthony Davis? If you can, be quick to answer here. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Anthony. I'm sorry.
I did.
All right. Go ahead.
I might have double clicked by accident, but I just wanted to hop in and tell you that I you know, Joe, you are one of my heroes. You've always been one of my heroes for quite a while. You know that. You know, you and I are very similar. You know, you have hemophilia. I have type 1 diabetes. You know, it's wonderful to hear that you're getting a treatment that's looking like a cure. And it's kind of given me hope, because with what you're doing, it may lead to a cure for diabetes one day. Or
they're working on that for genetic. It's coming down from what I've heard that any bloodborne pathogen, anything that's produced in an actual organ. All right. So hemophilia is the liver, diabetes is in your pancreas. Okay. So anything that is in the organ can be repaired or modified using cellular or genetic therapy. So my advice to you is hang on tight. The next 5 years is going to be a roller coaster ride for all of us that are born with these illnesses.
Yeah.
Right?
And I understand that. But what I was want to know is pretty much it's been answered, but they as far as long-term results go, is this a medicine you're going to have to keep taking forever?
It's a one-time, it's a one and done shot. I go to the hospital, I get it done, and I don't have to take it again.
Okay.
Once the genetic material is inserted into your body, the DNA in that material will go to your genes and target your genes and fix them permanently. You're permanently altered. So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't,
dude.
Yeah, because I was worried about that myself. Like, you know, how they would deal with if it's a constant thing in order to keep the genetic going. If you constantly have to do it, or
Well, good question, my friend. I'm going to let Carol go ahead and ask her question. She's been waiting in the limelight here for a minute. So
let me hop off. And
it's good to see you, Tony.
So
take care, my friend. All right, Carol, I think I muted you. You might want to unmute yourself there if you can, or hop back in. There's a little microphone icon there you can click on, and it should unlock it for you. Or you could just step down and come back in. There we go. Sweet. What's up, Miss Carol?
Hey, Joe. How are you?
I am too blessed to be stressed. How about you?
You know, you're the best. I've got two boys, 28 and 32, both severe A.
Okay.
I want to tell you that my older one is in the process of the gene therapy right now.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then tell me.
He was going to Sacramento. I might want to talk to you offline, and maybe that you'd want to talk to him because he could answer a lot of the questions for you since he's already been through it.
Oh, my gosh. Well, how is he doing post-therapy?
It was good. First of all, he travels all around the world to begin with.
Okay.
And then having to fly to Sacramento, once a week, but he's a warrior, you know.
That's awesome.
The factor levels were building up. I think they probably would have monitored him a little bit earlier, but he wouldn't give up.
Right.
So he's got so things are back and forth. I haven't spoke to him this week. The levels were up, the levels were down. They had him on steroids back and forth, and he didn't slow down. He says if I can find a cure, it's amazing. But I say I'll get to you offline. I'll see if there's any reason that you want to call him.
Are we friends on Facebook, Carol?
I don't think so. Somebody sent this to me last night, and the way you've explained everything has I've been trying to explain the joint bleeds for years to everybody, and the way you described it, where have you been? Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
I'm crying listening to this whole thing. I'm reliving my life.
Oh my gosh, girl, you are killing it right now. That's awesome.
But the boys, as I say, both of my boys are amazing. The one's got the joint bleeds. The other one that's done all this, he's been very active. Another thing that we've also working with a lot of the doctors when we never had support groups before was the more exercise you got, the less jumps he had. I mean, he jumps out of airplanes, everything else. Nothing would stop him.
Good.
Exercises and building up around the joints has really helped a lot more than things,
And that's a really good point you make, Carol, because, when I grew up in Kentucky, I don't know if you could tell from the little bit of a thick accent. Hey, what's up, Ashley? Hang out for just a second. But I grew up in Kentucky, so there wasn't a lot of education in the early 80s for a mom.
Yeah, we didn't have that.
No.
Yeah.
And so here I am like a little rugby boy running around trying to play ball and football and basketball, injuring myself week after week, day after day. And nobody told me, hey, you might want to take the bench and enjoy the rest of your life because you're damaging your body forever. Mm-hmm. And I wish I would if I could get into Doc Brown's DeLorean from Back to the Future and go back in time and say, Joe, take the bench, I would. Yeah,
we started the program up, and we're in upstate New York because nobody really knew what they were dealing with. And then we came up with, I padded baseball caps, not to let the kids, I can go into a whole list. I won't go there now.
Yeah.
But the support groups weren't around back then. So we just, we just had to wing everything. And we're an hour away from every hospital too.
That's amazing. So Carol, if you want, I want to give you my email address over in the sidebar. I don't know if you can see the chat room. Are you on a mobile platform or on the desktop?
No, I'm on the computer now.
Okay.
I tried to get my son on here, but he had an Android and couldn't pop on it before my other son.
So I typed in my email address. Go ahead and reach out to me, and we'll touch base after the show today, and we'll just kind of make sure we connect up on Facebook. And
that'd be great. I know Zachary's traveling like crazy. He's all over the place, but I'm sure you'd love to talk to him. And as I say, he's,
I would love to. Yeah, I'd love to have him on a show and like, hey, how are you doing?
He's an aerospace engineer. He's pretty brilliant. He understands all this stuff.
I'm just a comic book geek.
God. But it's great. I love them.
All right.
But anyway, that'd be great. I'll be in touch. But thanks for everything that you're doing.
My pleasure. Thank you, Carol.
Oh my God, you're the best.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sweetheart. You're amazing.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome, my dear. What's up, Ashley? How are you doing?
Hey.
What's going on?
Not much. I'm just like, I've got this notification on my Facebook, and I don't know anything about this app or whatever. I didn't even know this was possible, but I have a son. He just has severe hemophilia A.
Oh, how old is he? Like 4 months, 5 months?
He's 3 months.
Oh my gosh.
But it's like, I guess, this is all new to me. I mean, my brother has it and my cousin and all that, but like it's new, me being a mom.
Right.
I'm scared of like everything that's to come, but I know, so you're on here, you're talking about you're going to be doing the cure.
Yes.
That's what you're going through.
Yeah. And so
did you ever?
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was like, did you take the Hemlibra? Because that's what, I guess doctors may be thinking he might be in the trial. That's the Hemlibra?
There it is.
Okay.
So I'm on Hemlibra, and I started on January the 16th was my first infusion. I have had 0 bleeds, 0 issues, and it is approved for pediatric patients. Actually, as a matter of fact, Ashley, it was approved first for peds. So, and then once they figured out the research was getting, the data was coming in that pediatrics are living a normal life and doing, they're in band, they're in football, they're doing whatever the heck they want to do. Some of them's in track and field. I don't know how that works as a hemophiliac because I've never ran, but it's really interesting because Hemlibra is now changing the game. And what my hemophilia treatment center is doing here in Florida, my hemophilia treatment center is in Gainesville. Any pediatric patient that is born or comes into the clinic, they're immediately starting on Hemlibra as a new form of prophylactic therapy, just to get away from the intravenous infusion in the vein. So if your doctor hasn't discussed Hemlibra or anything like that, definitely start to initiate that conversation, because I want to tell you, I have no side effects, no injection site issues. I have no more bruising. I used to have bruising all over my abdomen. None of that. It is gone. And so
I heard that it like burns.
It does tingle a little bit, but honestly, I think where I've been through so much crap in my life, I'm just numb to it. If that makes sense. But if you could get past the little tingling sensation, I think it'll be perfectly fine. And where he's young and stuff, I think it would be really good to start him out on that regimen very early. Okay. Because as he gets older and he starts walking around, he starts banging his head. I'm sure you've gotten the information about, the helmets that you have to wear and the knee pads and the elbow pads if he goes out and rides the bike or whatever. And I'm sure that you as the mother have just been like inundated with a lot of information, and it's just coming from all directions and you don't know what to do. And I understand that. I get that. And I've been in that situation many times. So for you, I would say definitely initiate the conversation with your HTC hematologist for Hemlibra. And you really, if he gets a bump on his head, okay, he got a bump on his head. No freak out.
Yeah.
He's got Hemlibra and he's going to be fine.
Okay. Yeah. Because we went to I'm in Georgia. So our HTC is at Emory in Atlanta.
Okay. Yeah.
And they were talking about, so his next visit is in May. And they were thinking maybe about starting him on a trial of Hemlibra as a baby who, I guess, with them has never had it starting out. Like they would have had the prophylactic before that. Yeah. So this would be just starting on this, and I'm just nervous, the risks or this and that,
I understand you as a mom. You got your little baby there, and he's only 3 months old, and you want the best for him. And I would definitely, anytime you whether you stick your newborn or you're administering a drug, I mean, just think about this in this retrospect. It's a lot easier to stick him with Hemlibra in his little belly or on his little fat cheeky legs than it is to try to get in there and find a vein, which on an infant, do you know where I was stuck as a child on an infant? Right here, right in my forehead. And to this day, I've got some scarring right here where I had so many infusions. They had to stick my forehead because that vein would pop out when I was an infant, and that was the only vein they could find on my body. So, yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
So Hemlibra is very safe. I mean, I think they do some pre-screening just to kind of see where you are in terms of how much factor VIII. Do you know if he's a mild, moderate, or severe?
Severe.
So he's got less than 1% factor VIII. Okay. Well, I would definitely initiate that conversation and be bold about it, because this is your kid. You want the best for him. And if you're having a child this day and age, if you can get away from the factor VIII concentrates, of course, you'll have to have factor VIII on hands if he ever has a surgery or dental work or whatever. But if you can start him on Hemlibra now, and like they're recommending, he's not gonna have what I have. I mean, because look at me. I don't know if you can see the screen, but I can only bend my arm from there. That's extended as far as I can go to there.
Wow.
So you can see the top of my elbow too, and you should see my knee. My knee is I'm not even going to show you my knee. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely.
And so it's and then with this Hemlibra, it's what scares me is they say it works, but they just don't know how it works.
Yeah. Well, Hemlibra, actually, if you're watching the screen, Ashley, here, I'll show you something really quick. It's a little diagram here that I have. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
All right. So this is the molecule Hemlibra. Now, on the left-hand side, you have factor IX, and on the right-hand side, you have factor 10. Okay. So when you have to do an infusion in the vein, if you see this little gray thing coming down, that's what we do when we infuse factor VIII. You're basically, all right. So what Hemlibra does, it bypasses the need for factor VIII and actually binds factor IX and factor 10 to form the cascading clot needed to form a clot. So you don't even need factor VIII.
Wow.
Interesting concept, right?
And they don't know any long-term
Well, I mean, the evidence right now is 4 years, and there's nothing in all the patients that are on Hemlibra. There's no adverse side effects have reported for long term.
And it's been 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's been 4 years. Yeah, because Hemlibra came out about 4 years ago when I was at the NHF 2016 conference. I think it was right on here in Orlando. It was at the Gaylord Palms. And this is right when it was in clinical trials, and everybody was like, "Have you heard about this new drug?" And then, emicizumab, I think it is. And so it's pretty awesome.
Okay. Well, I
Ashley, thank you so much for hanging with me. Hey, if you want to connect with me on Facebook or Instagram, Ashley, I'm going to type in the chat room. If you're on mobile, if you swipe to the left, you'll see the chat room, or if you swipe to the right, you'll see the guest list. I'm going to type in my username on Instagram and my email address so you can connect with me if you have any questions down the line. Okay.
Do you do this a lot?
I do this pretty frequently, every couple of months. I definitely do it through my own channels on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I do a lot of advocacy, not just with hemophilia, but see, I'm one of the hemophiliacs that got HIV and Hep C in the 80s. So not only do I advocate for hemophilia. Had that. Yeah. So you understand all about it before I even dive down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, man. I know it's come a long way.
It has. Well, actually, you have a very blessed day. We're going to be praying and thinking about your little one. What's your son's name?
Yes, it is Harrison.
Harrison. What's up, buddy?
Maybe you'll see him at some conferences coming up.
That's awesome. Well, if you come to the Orlando conferences, chances are you'll see me, because I usually either I'm a guest speaker, I'm hosting, or doing something at those events. So.
Okay, cool.
Those cheeks. Oh my God. That's awesome. My dogs are barking.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ashley. Have a great day, my dear. Bye-bye. All right. So we have Crystal. Are you there, Crystal? Maybe. Maybe not. Crystal? How do I get my mobile camera to work? I am not 100% certain, Crystal. You have a 3-month-old on Hemlibra. Try restarting the app on your phone. I'll hang out for you on the stream. Just close the app and reopen it and see if that works. Okay? We'll try to get you in here, and then we're going to wrap up. Crystal's going to be the last one of the night. I closed the app, re-entered several times. Okay. Well, can you try talking? Is that an option? Can you do you have your headphones in, or maybe not? All right, I see you muted on my end, so unmute yourself. Okay. It could be a bandwidth issue, because I'm seeing that she's coming in on mobile. Are you connected to Wi-Fi, Crystal? If you are connected to Wi-Fi, that might give you a little bit of a better result. All right, guys. So I'm getting ready. You're on Wi-Fi. Okay. Well, I'm so sorry, Crystal. Crystal, if you want to connect with me on Instagram or Facebook, you can do that. Here's my handle over on Instagram. You can just find me anywhere. I'm so sorry, Crystal, for that, but we'll try to connect for sure. So yeah, connect me with me on Instagram and send me a DM, or we can just FaceTime really quick with each other. That's fine too. But so I want to really, I'm going to go ahead and if it's okay, I'm going to step down with Crystal, and I'm going to lock the seats, and I'm going to wrap things up. I want to thank Get Vocal for being the host for today's show. I definitely want to thank Gisela and Alex Riesenkampf. You guys are just fantastic. And I only wish the best for the platform. And I'm just very humbled that we get a chance to, you guys are seeing people from my community come on the platform and ask these questions and see these real world responses. And I think that's one of the reasons why Get Vocal is here, is connecting people from so many diverse groups and allowing us to have a platform to where we have a voice. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. It is the last day of February. I can't believe I just said that, but it is the last day of February. And this is pretty cool. March the 1st, tomorrow, is kicking off for the month of March, Bleeding Disorders Awareness Month. It's kind of like, how did he time that so perfectly? But I did that because I'm just intuitive that way. So tomorrow's Bleeding Disorders Awareness Month. I'll be changing all my profile pictures and everything over to Bleeding Disorders Awareness and all of that. So definitely rock the red and support those with bleeding disorders. And I want to thank everybody for joining me today. And hey, this is what it's all about. We'll be doing another one of these hopefully very soon. And you guys have an amazing rest of your day. I will see you on the next show.